All right, Battletech enthusiasts, let's build a fast, nimble, and we'll try to control the battle value. We'll try to keep it reasonable. Indirect fire list. And this Battletech vlog is building off 2 points. It's building off some tactica and comments based on one of the type of lists that I regularly enjoy running in Battletech. It's got big guns. It's got some mechs that can do some damage, but it leverages an interesting aspect. Also working on, following up on a few comments, light mechs, the Valkyrie. What I try to do in all of my Battletech games is keep track the best I can of kills or performance or something neat that happened based on the mechs I'm playing. Put that into an Excel sheet, sort it, shake it up. Maybe that's a little bit too much of a focus on the game, but I can see over time the performance of certain mechs, certain machines, and also I can look and say, it's been a long time since I've played X mech, or in this case, the Valkyrie. So I noticed in making the rotation in some of my light mechs, and I enjoy playing the Valkyrie tremendously. I mean, it is a regular light mech that I play, along with the Irby and the Panther and a few others, but it had been out of rotation for a little bit. And I was able to flag that, get it back into the list, get it back on the table, and in utilizing that, learning some of that tactica. So this leads into the question, building an indirect fire list of light mechs, and how is that different than a more heavy / assault indirect fire list? That's what we're going to look at. Now, I am going to frame for a moment the indirect fire heavy list so we can compare it to a light list. I'm going to go into a little bit of a detail on it, but more in detail in terms of the tactica and everything. That is up in the Battletech playlist, and you can find it just searching for longbows and indirect fire type lists. Essentially what we're doing is we're looking to leverage the fact with long-range missiles that you can fire indirectly. This essentially means that you can't hide anywhere on the hex map. Yes, I would love to have direct fire, because there's not going to be modifiers or additional modifiers working against me. I'm not going to need a spotter. I can see you. I can shoot you. But indirect fire gets very, very interesting with how it works. Perfect example, city fight, city tech. You've got some mechs, you've got some machines, you've got some stuff hiding, ready to mug me in the building. Yes, I could try to flatten those buildings, and that is a tactica. But if I can lay down some withering indirect fire, it's got bite. Right? It's got some beast behind it. Another example from a game that I played a little while ago, but it sticks in my mind. It's a great example. I'm pushing to the center of the city. We've got city tech. I'm pushing to the center of the city. I'm trying to be tactically good, stick together, not go for personal glory. And there was a wasp making its way up the side, up the flank. Now, certainly not as potent as, say, a Jenner, but it possibly could expose some of my support units, my LRM carriers, some thumpers, some light artillery, or those mechs in the back. I don't want any kind of mech really making an end run on there. But the question was, it's just a wasp, and do I want to pull off? How do I engage that was the question. Do I want to pull off a couple of mechs to try and slow it down, engage it, drive it away, destroy it? Could probably outrun me, especially, again, given that it's city fight, city tech. So let's pepper it. Let's hit it with some indirect fire. Now, there's modifiers like crazy because it's moving fast. It's indirect. But in this list, I have lots and lots of missiles. First time I didn't connect. Second time I connected, blew the leg off. And that's it. It's done. It's taken out. Can just crawl along. So this is the example of indirect can be very, very deadly. There's also a secondary tactica of kind of leading into big guns, never tire. You can have your fancy plans. You can have your tactica. As soon as I start shooting at you, things get real. As soon as you start shooting at me, things get real. Autocannon 20 on the table. You're like, all right, there's an AC-20. Fritz is running up there. I'm playing a combo that I'm kind of enjoying right now. The 20 bros looking at something like a Victor and the Irby with the AC-20, running those up there, although I guess more of a walking because Irby's kind of slow. And then once you get up there, start shooting. As soon as I'm in range and I start blasting with 2 AC-20s, I don't even have to crunch the numbers. I'm going to need like 11s and 12s to hit you. You notice that. I roll those dice, time seems to slow down, right? So anytime we can start shooting, even if the chances are low to hit, it makes it real. It makes it Battletech real on the table. Indirect fire does that. So in this list, the way that the Tactica works, well, first I need a spotter. And this is also now going to port over to our light list. You're going to need some sort of spotter type mech. I can do that with locusts if I'm feeling the lulls. I'll often do that with warriors. I'll do that with a Karnov. I'll try to stay on track and not go out on a side tangent on a Karnov. Could have that with infantry, hot drop 'em, movement to positions. I tend to favor warriors and other air units to spot just for mobility, but certainly you could do fast hovers, you can do light mechs, but you need generally something that can operate or has been configured to operate as a dedicated spotter. Could be a Jenner, right? Could be anything from that. So we need a spotter. Then you have your core. Now in the heavier type lists, where I've got battle value, and I'm filling this out with dedicated LRM support, heavies and assaults, that core is relatively slow moving. I've got, depending on the battle value, 2 longbows, 2 archers, 2 to 4 LRM carriers. Usually it's 2 longbows, 2 LRM carriers, or 2 archers, maybe a longbow, LRM carriers. That's got some bite. Real time, that is hundreds of missiles coming down at you on the table. Now, I don't have super mobility. I'm not a bunch of light mechs. I'm not a bunch of fast moving stuff. So how I get around that is by literally saturating. I don't have the nimbleness. I saturate the table. I saturate the target with hundreds and hundreds of missiles. Now, this core, it's a little bit slow moving. I need to be careful. And if something gets in there, right? Yes, they're heavy mechs, they're assault mechs. But if a dedicated assault team gets in there, could be vehicles, could be Saladins making the crazy run, Kessel run, whatever. That's a problem. So I need some sort of blocker interceptor unit. And again, depending on the battle value, sometimes it's a Demolisher tank, AC-20s. Sometimes it's my favorite, a T-Bolt. Sometimes it's a Warhammer. And that's the list that moves ahead. So we need spotter. We need saturation of missiles, or in this case, being nimble. And then we need some sort of what-if counter. So porting that over to light mechs, keeping that battle value a little bit lower, or maybe having some dedicated harassment type units. Looking at Valkyries, looking at light mechs that, and this gets a little challenging, we can get around the numbers. Obviously, we're not going to throw out hundreds and hundreds real-time LRM missiles, but if I can select mechs with 10 packs, or I can select vehicles with 10 packs, because that at least has, as a minimum, if I can do greater, that's better, but that's at least got some bite if I roll average. And if I can get 2 or 3 or 4 of those units, either vehicles or again mechs, that's got a little bit of a nexus. That's got a little bit of a bite. Having an example like a Thorn, which is a light mech that I like to play, that I consider that a skirmish type mech. It's got an LRM pack, but it's only a 5-pack. That's just to get like someone's attention, soften things up a little bit, maybe fire and see if you take me seriously. To take 2 or 3 Thorns and utilize them in an indirect role, you can. And if I can take advantage of that, I will, but that's not a dedicated mobile LRM firebase indirect fire type scenario. We need something with a little bit more bite. The advantage that the lights have, or the vehicles have, that we want to keep is speed. So these things need to be fast. Now fast is relative. Valkyrie's not the fastest mech out there, but it's got light mech. As a light mech, it's got good enough speed with the reach. It's got some capabilities there. But you can also look at some LRM hover tanks. And it's easy to say in Battletech, the answer to everything is hovers. I mean, hover units, they've got a lot of potency because they're lower battle value. They've got good speed. Even the medium hover tanks have great speed. And if we're looking at an LRM firebase situation, I'd always like a lot of armor, but I'm not as concerned with getting hit because I'm going to be moving fast enough. I'm going to be deployed. I'm going to be hitting you with the LRMs. And if you challenge me, I'll run away. See, with the heavy mechs and the assault mechs, with the longbows and the archers, I can't run away. I'm just not fast enough. So I need to understand that, yes, if you try to engage me, I can't fade away. So I need some sort of blocking unit. Again, being demolishers, 2 AC-20s, looking at warhammers, looking at T-bolts, again, depending on the battle value, because I got to get my other toys in the list. Well, we can skip that blocking unit. We can save the battle value if things are fast enough, because we can redeploy. We can run away. We can fade away. You might want a couple of little blocking units, and we'll look at some ideas for the lulls from that perspective that can work. What you get with a light type fire base is also the ability to massively redeploy relatively quickly. And this makes things a little bit more unpredictable. So when I'm playing my heavies and assaults, I try to dominate the center of the table. I try to deploy, obviously depends on mission deployment and terrain. If the center is all open, I don't want to be there because I'm trying to hide too. If I can indirect you, I'd like to stay indirect and not be seen. But I like to push from the mid-band up to the center of the table. This way I can radiate outward, meaning if you're on the left side of the table, I can hit you. If you're on the right side of the hex map, I can hit you with little type of movement. But you know where I'm going to be. You know where I'm going to be and where I'm going to want to hang out. That makes the counter a little bit easier. Where if I've got some lights, or I build a light indirect lance, and I see you coming up on my left side of the hex map, I can move, get in a good position, start firing away. You stall out your advance, you send some counter, I can pull away, I can get out of there. Or if you try to move from one part of the table, I have a lot more flexibility. We have a lot more flexibility from that perspective. So we don't necessarily need that blocking unit. The other aspect is the slower indirect fire lists, they tend to face forward to forward because, again, I'm going to try and dominate that center band. If I've got a bunch of lights, or a bunch of fast moving, I don't want to say just limit this to mechs, fast moving units, I could possibly get behind. And if I can indirect fire from behind, hit you from rear armor, hit you rear for motive hits, or hit you side motive hits, then that, yes, I'm not putting out the hundreds of real-time missiles, but that becomes infinitely more deadly, infinitely more interesting with how it works. So what kind of list would this look like? Then I'm going to turn over to you guys in the comments, where we're looking at light, fast-moving units that can put out the LRM delivery. Not necessarily blocking units, but maybe some bonus points for that if we get stuck in or it's such a great position and maybe we want to hold it for a bit. And what can act as spotters. The two things that I would look at, the two kind of easiest units to look at, and then I'll branch out, let you guys branch it out. Valkyries and Savannah Masters. The Savannah Masters can act as, for the battle value. I mean, it's like, let's take like a lawnmower engine, and we're going to strap a seat on the front, and then we're going to put a medium laser right beneath that seat. And then we'll give it this illusion of like some armor. We'll give it like a sleek kind of look, but really it's not armor. It's just a cover. The battle value is nothing for these. If you put down the lulls factor aside, if you take a swarm of these, well, they're fast moving. They can work as spotters, multiple levels of spotters. And then in mass, just on the initiative, you're also gaining an initiative sync, but we'll put that aside because it's a little bit, could be potentially touchy depending on who you're playing. But there in mass, if I've got 5, 10 medium lasers, they could swarm up. It's like Constructicons forming Devastator. I could form up all in one little area and have 10 or X number of medium lasers shooting at you as a blocking unit if I have to. But at the same time, the redundancy is I can disperse out and use it as spotters or use it as snipers. So I think the combination of if I like playing Valkyries, I'm also trying to pull some miniatures from the lists that I like to play. Some Valkyries, 2, 3 with the LRM 10s. LRM 10 on a light is kind of out there. It's something special. And then taking a bunch of Savannah Masters, that would be the foundation of it. And again, with this type of idea, ultimately what we're trying to do is build an LRM Firebase mobile list and try the best we can. I know it's hard, right? Battle value, so many toys. Try to keep that battle value down. Can we replicate the Tactica? Can we gain the Tactica foothold for a smaller battle value buy-in to use in a big game? Or if it's a smaller type game, what would that buy-in battle value begin to look like? Can we utilize that on the table?